everyone, Naked Trevor here, back with a review for House of the Dragon. We're on episode 4, and my goodness, the drama really is ramping up. This is good stuff. So far, doesn't seem like they've squandered the budget at all. Every episode, it just keeps ramping up the quality. I'm really enjoying it. So I got my notes here. I'm kind of going to go through what happens in the episode and give you my thoughts on what happens. Here we go. Let's get right into it. So it opens with the princess with a long line of suitors, which is pretty funny. She's got a jab at one of them because he's so old, and what he thought of how her grandmother looked, which is pretty funny. It's good stuff. And followed up right after him is basically a little boy, which is just disturbing, but this is how it was back then, I guess. So anyway, we find out the little boy is a Blackwood, and there's a Bracken in the audience who keeps kind of heckling him as he gives his pitch to be, her husband, right? And this is fantastic. If you know anything about the Blackwood and Bracken in the books, there's a feud that has been going on between these two houses for generations. So to get this in the show and actually have it break into a fight, and immediately the princess goes, okay, we're leaving, because once the fight broke out, oh my goodness, the fights between the two Blackwoods and Brackens are notoriously gruesome. And then sure enough, the little kid guts the other guy. So, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Anyway, we get to see the princess on her ship sailing back from her, 2-month tour of meeting suitors. Right? She cut it early 2 months, I guess. Right? So she's coming home, and we see that Daemon is coming home as well on the back of Caraxes, and he swoops low over the ship just to kind of mess with her, right? And this also is good stuff. And I really like the way that they depict Caraxes kind of slithering through the air. It's just awesome. This is just grade A medieval fantasy, and this is what I'm here for. I'm super digging it, I gotta say. Daemon shows up, walks into the Great Hall, where the Iron Throne is, and everybody's kind of on their toes. Even the King's Guard are drawing swords, ready to run him through, and he... no one knows what he's going to do. He holds out an axe and tells him to add it to the throne, which is, fantastic. And then we see that they kind of make amends in front of everyone. And it's good stuff, because, again, you don't know what Daemon's going to do. But you see that they actually do care about each other, these two brothers, Daemon does have respect for his older brother, and Viserys still has some affection for his younger brother. It's good stuff. Anyway, next we get a scene with Alicent and the princess, and the passage of time, I think, in this show has been done fantastic. It's subtle, but we get it. If you're paying attention, you see, she was pregnant in the last episode, now she's got a toddler, so we know kind of how old they are without them exactly telling us with some dialogue. It's good stuff. They have this conversation where Alicent tries to show the princess how things could be worse, having her choice of men, and then the princess tells her, how awful it must be to be imprisoned in a castle and made to squeeze out heirs, and quickly realizes how just awful this is to say to Alicent, because that's exactly what she's in. And she quickly apologizes, and we see that there's still friendship between the two of them, somewhat, and this is... this is good stuff. This is what's going to build the drama as the story continues to go on, because they don't hate each other entirely, Anyway, next we got the Daemon and the princess discussing wives and childbirth and how her mother was made to produce heirs until it killed her. He says, you shouldn't live in fear. She only wants to live in solitude. And he replies, but that would be lonely. Which, we get a little bit of a setup between the two of them. And that, they have far more in common than anyone else as far as her suitors go. What else we got? Small council meeting. We see that we find out that the Sea Snake is making an alliance with the Free Cities, and that he plans on wedding the daughter that he was going to wed to the king to one of the princes from Braavos, right? The hand suggests that if the Sea Snake were to make a arrangement, that they would also need to do something, as far as a political arrangement, marriage. And then, puts the princess right in the hot seat. Camera's right on her. It's good stuff. We get the princess back in her room, and we find out that Daemon has left her a note and a change of clothes, and basically a diagram on how to escape, without being noticed by the king's guard and everyone in the castle. So she sneaks out through one of these secret passageways in the Red Keep, which is awesome to see. I love seeing more of this because there's supposedly all sorts of intricate little sneaky, passageways, spyways, and spy holes all throughout the castle. She meets up with Daemon, and they begin to peruse the streets of King's Landing, watching a play based on the current events of the show, which, when they were... I think there was a couple of plays in the old Game of Thrones show, and they were depicting some of the things that had happened, some of the events that have happened, and those events that were told from a commoner's point of view. Whereas this is literally a commentary on the show's current events that, I don't know, it just seemed kind of strange to me. I mean, I get it. It's a way to have the princess in the audience and, heckling, trying to, showing the princess the reality of the situation. And this is what Daemon wanted to do. And the showrunners used this as a way to easily get that across. But would they be having a play on something like that right now? I don't know. Maybe on something that had happened, but like the speculation of who's going to sit on the throne, again, I think it's better when the showrunners do writing not for the audience, but for the situation and the characters and the context and the story. And so far, the show's done this quite a bit. This is an instance where I feel like it's for the audience. Anyway, gonna move on. He then brings her to a brothel, which is just disgusting. I mean, this is your niece. Anyway, and she's very young, too. Brings her to a brothel. And things start to get a little bit gross between the two of them. And as soon as the two of them start to get into it, and she starts to respond in a way that she is just as into it as he is, we see that, more of the sick bastard that he is, and it turns him off, and he literally leaves her half naked in the brothel and storms off. So then, this is the controversial part of the episode. As far as like the events, and this will have consequences throughout the rest of the story. It's good stuff. So she then leaves this brothel, and we see a little spy who, then chases off after her. Also, during that brothel scene, we get another scene with the king summons the queen at night to his bedchambers. And we see her laying there like a dead fish as the king does his business, which also is very disturbing because she just lays there with this catatonic stare at the ceiling as she picks her fingers, and just you see all the lesions and just disturbing, right? My goodness. So this also begs the question, like, did she ever like this guy? Like, it's tough. Was it all orchestrated by the hand? And the whole time she was in on it? I think so. Is she that ambitious? I mean, what is her... I love the ambiguity. It's fun to speculate. Does she like the king? Doesn't she? Is it all for her own personal ambitions? Does she wish to see her son on the throne as much as her father does? This is fun. It's good stuff. But also, just gross. Anyway, we see the spy that chased after the princess. Oh, I digress. I'm sorry. Spy, yes. But the princess, she makes her way back to the castle. Now, I thought this was a little bit strange because we don't see her sneak back into her room the way she came out of her room. It shows her kind of coming in through the front door. She comes right in through her own front door to her bedroom, past Sir Criston Cole, which I feel like would have caused an alarm. Somebody would have said something or seen her. People would have said something, right? The king would have known about it. I don't think it would have been just brushed over, but hey, I don't know. Maybe she snuck past me. Maybe they just didn't recognize her, Move on, right? It's okay. So anyway, Princess, being all horned up from her experience in the brothel, she comes home and she wants to get down. So she pulls Sir Criston Cole into her room. And, he's not innocent. He wanted to do the deed just as much as she did. And they bang. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, back to the little spy. The spy is delivering the news to the hand of the king, and the hand of the king. This is where it gets even more interesting because the next scene we have Daemon Targaryen, passed out, and his not so common whore tending to him. And we also see this spy show up with a bit of coin, and he exchanges it with the not so common whore, right? And she was trying to nurse Daemon, saying that she is his protector, and he just dumps the tea out, doesn't even care. Again, we get more of just how much Daemon doesn't give a shit. It's fantastic. But this causes the question, is that spy working for the hand? Was the spy working for Daemon and his uncommon whore? Like, who was it? Did Daemon intend this all to happen this way? I think that is more likely than not, because we see what happens. The hand gets the axe. He gets fired. So anyway, I love how subtle it is. It's not on the nose. You just see the boys show up. There's an exchange of coin between him and the woman, and they run off. But it's good stuff, It implies that it may have been Daemon this whole time, or, maybe not, maybe Daemon just knows that kid is a spy for the hand and knows that if that happens, that's what will happen. The hand will know about it, setting it all up. So it's good stuff. It's great. So we see that the hand has to deliver the news to the king, and he's having great difficulty giving him the news because, telling him that his daughter's been, sleeping around in a brothel with her uncle, which is it's disturbing news to give to anyone. And he gives it to the king. The king's very upset, claims he'll rip out the eyes of whoever claimed this to be the truth, and the hand kind of just says, well, I'm not going to say. Sometimes I got to give you harsh truths, dude. Just deal with it. But we find out that the queen, she was in the room the whole time, right? So she hears this news. The queen then goes and confronts the princess. And the princess then lies right to her face, swears on her dead mother that she's still virtuous and that Daemon never touched her. Right? And, that may be true. Maybe Daemon and her never actually had, consummated the deed, right? But she's not innocent. We know what happened, right? Anyway, she's lying right to her face, which is just terrible. A moment after that, we see Daemon stumbling into the Red Keep, and the King's Guard, they then scoop him up and escort him to the king, and the king is very upset, calls him out on the allegations, and Daemon neither confirms nor denies it, which is, again, just fantastic, because either way, it doesn't matter if he confirms it or if he denies it. The fact is the perception of it, which then we see Viserys saying that to Rhaenyra in the next scene. So anyway, he tells Daemon that he's got to get lost. Doesn't want to see him. He sees him for what he really is. He just has ambitions for the throne. And, I guess it could be that easy to put those ambitions and see that that's all that he has. But I think that it's more than that, and that Daemon really wants to restore. He sees it in his mind that he would be restoring the Targaryen family to their former glory. Because right now, the king is being manipulated by everyone around him. And that, he's a weak dragon in comparison, right? So him wedding his niece would be restoring the House Targaryen to the former glory that it was. But, the king's like, I won't have it. Get lost. Go back to the Eyrie, to your lawful wife, and try to regain some of your dignity, your integrity. And he banishes him, which, keep that in mind, Anyway. Moving forward. Anyway. Next, we have the king and the princess, and a little bit more about that dagger and the prince who was promised, and the song of ice and fire. And this, again, the showrunners are trying to make it work with the previous show, and I can respect this. This is good to try to make it coherent with what we've been presented. I get it, but the problem is that you don't have Aegon Targaryen, a.k.a. Jon Snow, being the one wielding the dagger, killing the Night King, and fulfilling the prince who was promised prophecy. No. Our expectations were subverted, if you recall, and that was Arya Stark. But I guess, does it matter? I don't know. Who knows? Hey, this could be a theory. Here we go. Maybe the idea is to lay some foundation for what could be, and then George will finish his actual books, right? And then more time goes on, and they reboot Game of Thrones, and they do it all over again, only this time make it completely faithful to the books and do like 15 seasons of it, and we get the prince who was promised. We get the payoff that we've all are expecting instead of what we got. Anyway, back to the story at hand. So the king tells her that there's a greater responsibility to the throne, and that, no matter what her desires are, no matter what the truth was, the perception is what she did, sneaking out and banging her uncle in a brothel, and that she's no longer, she's no longer intact, right? So anyway, he tells her she's gonna be married to the sea snake's son, Sir Laenor, and she's gonna do it without protest. And she agrees finally, being reasonable, and this is again, good stuff. I mean, not everybody it's more realistic that she would be willing to compromise, because this is what ultimately she wants to be the heir to the throne. She doesn't want her father to rename her, so it makes no sense for her to continue to fight him on it. So having her agree at this moment when, Sir Laenor, they grew up together, I'm sure she's already thinking about the arrangement that they could have. So it makes sense that she would agree, but I do like that she tells the king that it is his responsibility to rid himself of the vulture sitting on his throne. That is Otto Hightower and his Hand of the King. And that his, obviously, if he is spying on her, that he no longer has the best intentions for House Targaryen. And that, considering everything surrounding him, his daughter, the current king, and their children, that, she's not wrong, right? So anyway, this is followed up with a scene with the king telling Otto that is it, basically firing him and telling him this is a great scene between two pros. Honestly, I really liked it. We go through, we see the king retell the story of how the Hand got his job, ended up in the role, and how it was the king's own father who was supposed to be the Hand previously to Otto, and kind of accusing him on how quickly it was that he was able to take his place. And, a little bit of suspicion there, clearly. But then we see that, it's very hard for him to tell him that he has to go, and, he talks about how he accuses the Hand that his own daughter was a calculated distraction from the grief of losing his wife, and tells the Hand that his interests no longer align with that of the realm, and that he can no longer trust his judgment, which is, and you see that it's hard for him to do. It's a good scene. And he fires him, and that's it. And again, setting up the drama. And the drama's, like I said, this episode ramping up. Last scene of the episode, the Grand Maester comes to the princess at night with a special brew Plan B tea from the king to rid her of any unwanted consequences. And, they don't show whether or not she drank the tea. And I got a feeling that she didn't, but I suppose we'll find out. Time jump, or, because we don't get another time jump in the next episode. Anyway, we don't know whether or not she drank the Plan B tea. She probably did, but I like that they leave it up to interpretation whether or not she did. It's good stuff. So anyway, House of the Dragon, episode 4. Fantastic banger of an episode, no pun intended, but loved it. Good stuff. I really like that the actors and everybody involved really seems committed to realism. Like, the writing is committed to the realism within the scene, within the context, and again, not just written for what the audience wants to see. We're not getting Clegane Bowl bullshit like we did in season 8. Game of Thrones. So anyway, if you guys made it through this whole video, there's going to be more on the way. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.